Man, that was a good apple.
Now Appleton, the sluggish grass dragon type, connects directly to the purpose of the baking apple, making desserts both sweet and savory. But before we delve into that rabbit hole, I have to give you one surprising connection. Applin has a Paldean Pokemon that is a perfect complement to it. It's Fidough! The Dough Dog's got breath that contains yeast that is very likely the species of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, also known as baker's yeast or brewer's yeast, being the microorganism most commonly responsible for fermentation. It's a relative of shroomish or toadstool. Yeast was most likely first discovered in Egypt. Then in the 19th century, bread bakers obtained their yeast from brewers of booze, leading to sweet fermented breads such as the imperial Kaiser Semmel roll. Whereas the Chaldeans, or the Spaniards, would call yeast levadura, while the curiously levadura in polvo is baking powder. Scientists tend to describe the discovery of the role of yeast in fermentation in relation to the visual discovery of the morphology of the yeast organisms by J.H. van den Broek in 1859. Though logically, if Fidough was discovered before the first bread, they would have made pain de sal, or bread of salt, which was hard and crusty and an answer to the French baguette. Fun fact, Spain's first bakery opened in 1631, getting its wheat flour from China. However, Britain would have used Fidough later by the 1780s and 1790s. It was not until the 1860s that Louis Pasteur identified yeast as a living organism. That's a long time to not know it was alive. As for where the yeast was isolated from, it originally was from the skin of another fruit, but that's another show. Ha! Getting back to apples, their original application was actually making the hard stuff, and that required their own yeast. Enter the Saccharomyces found on apple skin, as they would need sugars to grow and reproduce. Fruit overall provide everything for these microbes to flourish. Then along comes Decara and Brettanomyces to finish the job. As for the history of cider, it's a whole other ball of wax. For after apples left the home of Aborat, it took on a whole new ball game. The Olma, the original Kazakh word for the fruit, spread to Rome, then Germany, then France, where the term palm was adopted by even the English. Britain, however, is where the apples, like dessert apples and cider apples, took root. The word cider is derived from the Hebrew shekar, meaning strong drink, to the theoretical progression from Cider or Cider from Latin, to the French Cicera, to the Italian Cidro, then the French again cider, which translated into cider, like a game of telephone. The hard stuff was first to New England before the Germans brought over their fermented hop juice. That one survived Prohibition, but the fermented apples did not. Some apple trees had to face the wrath of angry Puritans. However, one great thing came from this point in history: sweet cider. Yeah, the foggy stuff! Then, because of demand, the unfiltered apple beverage eventually led to the apple juice we all know and love. This is how hard and soft drinks got their distinction. Hard drinks are defined as harsh or sharp to the taste from the colonial days. From bad waters to bad brews, created an industry that dwarfs the liquid it was compensating for. The lack of the original enemy of dehydration in a clean state H2O, or water was defeated in sales. Whereas the term soft drink was originated to distinguish the drinks from spirits and ales,
with ginger ale and ginger beer being the exception.
plus my favorite, a good sarsaparilla. But the first marketed soft drink was, of course, a lemonade in 1676. However, in the business side of apples, only one company has held its place in culture long enough to have two treasures in Pikmin 2. The thirst activator and the fruit guard. And that's TreeTop! It was the premier grower-owned apple processing cooperative of the United States. Founded by Bill Charbonneau, who after moving from Southern California with his family to Selah, Washington, purchased an apple processing plant. Then in the 1950s, he developed the very brand of apple juice featured in Pikmin 2, the treasure Fruit Guard. Though to differentiate his juice from others, Bill sought the expertise of global experts in fruit processing. One of those experts was Carl Weisbrod, who has been credited with developing the process of making a shelf-stable apple juice. Charbonneau also bought the first U.S. patent rights to a clear apple juice process developed in Switzerland. But the name of the company had to come from within. You see, there was a contest that was held amongst his employees, leading to the name TreeTop, due to the perception that the highest quality of fruit grew at the tops of trees. Then a few orchardists bought Bill's company in 1960, buying the rights to the first clear apple processes developed as well as its facilities. Along with its subsidiary, Sabroso Company, they make a wide array of fruit-based products, not limited to the TreeTop brand apple juice, but also their applesauce, which was showcased in Pikmin 2 as the treasure oddly named Thirst Activator, but was better titled in the original Japanese as the Nature Advertisement. And of course, TreeTop has their fresh sliced apples. One last great aspect to the TreeTop brand is that their cooperative growers were motivated to come together as a means of transforming excess and unattractive fruit into delicious products for families to enjoy. Today, they still save ugly and excess fruit more than 800 million pounds each year after expanding their expertise. From the numerous varieties of produce-based products, they increased their range into cereals, baby food and snacks, to dairy treats, pet food, and more.